What do you think would happen when you allow a country to invade Congo? When you allow Rwanda to invade Congo and displace millions? And I said more than 7 million people displaced. You create perpetual asylees. You create perpetual refugees that can no longer live in the country. And we had Raphael talk about how the people of the Congo are being ethnically cleansed.
But what makes us cry is part of genocide, because they trying to destroy community around there to come to go and change the situation, which is in DRC, our country. So we've been protesting, we've been breaking silence about genocide in Kivu, which Rwanda imposed to us as a puppet.
Those who profit from the war want those lands to be empty, or want those lands to be populated by other people. He said it, I didn't say it. And that's the narrative that you hear from most Congolese people when you ask about them. You ask about why they're getting killed. Welcome back. Happy Friday, everyone. This is a special episode. I know it's Friday. We usually meet on Saturdays, 2 p.m. Eastern time, but this is big. And if you haven't had the chance to, kind of like follow along what's going on in the Congo, because a lot is going on, a lot has been happening. Like every week, it seems like as every time that you sleep, like there's a quote. It's actually funny. Lingala olali balalio. Like if you sleep, they're gonna keep you asleep even more, because you don't want to be sleeping in the Congo. You really want to be awake. And this is what we are. This is why we are here for, as Friends of the Congo, to raise awareness, to keep you woke on the issue of the Congo. If you wonder who I am, my name is Gaetan. I'm one of the coordinators of Friends of the Congo, and today we're gonna dive deep into the not so new but kind of newly signed agreements between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda. As we've been saying for months, for years, for 3 decades, ever since our even creation 2004, talking about the war that has been imposed on Congolese people for 3 decades now. And this deal signed just yesterday in Washington, D.C. There was the deal itself was signed on June 27th, and I think had a 3 hour even episode trying to break down, line by line, item by items, what the articles or what the points in the accord or what that meant. And we brought to you guys, experts to discuss, dissect. Our executive director was here himself. We had think tank to discuss this issue as well. We had journalists, we had activists for months, ever since the signature or the signing of that accord. We brought to you people to make you understand the danger of that accord and what that means really for the Congolese people, for Congolese sovereignty. So this deal, like I was saying, signed yesterday, has been drawing a lot of attention. And we like what, 24 hours later, I was personally at work. I wasn't able to fully watch that and even paying attention, just a bit of it. So today and tomorrow we are going to dissect that. And even later in the show, like right, very soon, I'm gonna bring his actually on backstage our executive director Maurice Carney. He's gonna join us to help us or help me break it all down for you. But first, really, I want to talk about what it means and what and who stands to benefit, right? Like, so if we have to like kind of like lay out the landscape, we've seen both President Tshisekedi and President Kagame visiting Washington, and this agreement is a big piece of why they were there. But beyond the official speeches, which I found very interesting, and I think we'll have a chance. I was able to find a few clips. We'll be able to play some of them, and if I cannot, catch us tomorrow as well for another part, and even on the 13th, December 13th, with a long segment with former spokesperson Kambale Musavuli, and he agreed. So we are going to dive even deeper with him as well. So, so now let's kind of like picture the thing, like the real story of who's actually profiting this accord. We know that American companies are lining up to enter the DRC mining sectors, and that hasn't been. I cannot really understate this enough. I cannot really emphasize this enough that this new economic plan, excuse me, is bringing actors to the Congo. And if we look at the track records, we see familiar names, companies like Ivanhoe, for example. And I think that was kind of said on that it was announced the Ivanhoe's the Ivanhoe Mines Roberts Freeland just said that his company project to Congo said that his company's project in the Congo are creeping up on 10% of the country entire GDP, and that's Michael J. Kavanagh who tweeted that. So we will talk about that, like really, like Ivanhoe. Not sure if I'm pronouncing the name even correctly, have been involved in the region and have faced scrutiny over human rights concern in the past years, and we've seen that happen even in the midst of a peace deal, and it's in really an economic reshuffle where certain U.S. actors are really poised again, to really significant access to Congo resources. It's also important to talk about the real beneficiaries and who they are, right? That we've seen prophets and Watchdog pointing out that while the deal is framed as path to stability, it's also about channeling wealth. And we even have the international rights advocates who is issuing like a lawsuit. They are actually putting a case against Apple. So some of these actors have been really implicated, like I mentioned, violation of human rights, and been known to even transfer resources from Rwanda into the U.S. directly under very questionable circumstances. So we'll also take a closer look at that side of the story as well. So now as we move forward, we also consider the legal angle of it, and that's the guest that I'm going to have the honor to receive tomorrow. Like I mentioned, international rights advocate Olamide. She will help us dive deep into that lawsuit that I mentioned, that's already been surfacing and talked about. So there is a peace narrative here, but there is also a big economic plan that could reshape who controls the Congo. So I'm gonna bring on stage Maurice Carney, the executive director, to kind of like help me, because I know, contrary to me, he has been following that. So let me see if I can bring him on. Oh, hello, how you doing?
I'm good. Yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Just discussing what everybody has been talking about, or what people have been eager to even hear our commentary on that. It is the signing of the accord. But before I go into you, I'm gonna play this clip that I found from CNN and just have your perspective. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, let's do this.
And you can tell how much President Kagame and President Tshisekedi don't trust each other based on what they said. President Kagame said that if this deal fails, it won't be Rwanda's fault. That these Washington Accords, as they're called, have all the elements necessary to end the war. And then President Tshisekedi, on his part, said that we hope Rwanda can agree to the terms of this deal once and for all. So there's no back and forth about supporting militia groups and essentially reneging what they've agreed on. The two men barely looked at each other. I was watching their body language, and they barely shook hands, barely looked at each other. That's how much mistrust there is between these two men.
That is very clear from what I saw as well. There's a lack of trust here, which then begs the question, Larry. I mean, how far-fetched is this deal? I mean, how tangible, let me put it this way, is peace?
This Washington Accord as they're called, will not end the conflict in eastern DRC. Just this week, 2 days ago, both sides accused each other of sabotaging this deal because there was fighting continuing in 3 parts of the eastern DRC. The Congolese military says they came under attack from the M23, and the M23 in a separate statement said that they'd been attacked by the Wazalendo, which is a militia group allegedly backed by the Congolese government. And so even while this deal is going on, there's no actual peace on the ground. And I was in Goma in September, and I spoke to the leader of the M23 rebel group, Kone Nanga, and he said they're not a party to this. They wish President Trump all the best, but they don't trust President Tshisekedi, that he is a crook. He used that word, crook. And he's gone back on every deal he signed before. Their intention is to go to Kinshasa and to overthrow him.
There is another element to this, Larry, and President Trump, we played that little clip there, touched on that, and that is economic, right? The US is seeing this, using this as an opportunity to access critical minerals, of which, of course, the US relies heavily from China. Speak to that, the transactional nature here.
That is a criticism in the DRC and in parts of Africa, that the US is not a clean arbiter in this, that it's interested in the rare earths. And President Trump said that they have signed separate bilateral agreements with both Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo to access the critical minerals and the rare earths that exist in this region, this mineral-rich region, that, for instance, the world's largest reserves of cobalt are also coltan. These are critical in the manufacture of everything from electric vehicles to mobile phones, and the world needs a lot of them, and President Trump has not hidden his intentions for that. So that is the subtext here, that people say the US is only doing this because it's interested in those minerals, because there have been previous deals that have failed, and President Tshisekedi and Kagame both said that. There have been many previous attempts by the African Union, in Kenya, in Angola. These didn't work out. So why the US? Why now? They praised President Trump, they praised Secretary Rubio, they praised Masad Boulos, who is his special advisor on Africa, but the critical minerals question cannot be ignored.
Yeah, Masad Boulos saying this is a starting point. We shall see where this leads. Larry, good to see you. And from
I think I thought I asked you for a second. So something really quick that I want to come back, right, as we are discussing this, because there was no shake. They didn't shake hands. That's one of the things that I noticed. So can you talk about a peace deal without having the two parties that are in conflicts even shake hands?
Well, can you hear me okay, guys?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
I mean, it's symbolic in the sense that it reflects, that's one other element that reflects the reality on the ground. They're not shaking hands in Goma, so why should they shake hands in Washington? Meaning that the conflict is still ongoing, the eastern country is still occupied, Rwanda is still at war against the Congolese people. And so, it's kind of interesting, like the signing and the agreements, they're like a facade, and both men kept it real, with each other, right? Because there's no love lost between the two of them. Just last week in the press conference that Kagame held in Kigali, he went back to what he's repeated on several occasions, that he questioned the legitimacy of Tshisekedi, saying that he wasn't elected. He was selected by the outgoing President Joseph Kabila, and the then chairman of the National Electoral Commission, Kone Nanga, who's now head of the Congo River Alliance, the political wing of the M23, both of which exist due to the support of the Rwandan government, Paul Kagame. So just symbolically, it means a lot. It's an indication of the fragility of the agreement. Now remember, there were like really four agreements signed yesterday, right? not just one. One was the Washington Accord, which is the basically the consummation of the June 27th agreement, right? That has its 6 points that is supposed to lay down a path for peace. Within the Washington Accord is number 6, the 6th provision, regional economic integration framework, right? So there was an agreement around that. That's the second piece of the deal. And then there was a bilateral agreement between a strategic partnership between the DRC and the United States, which was dealt with energy, dealt with infrastructure, dealt with critical minerals, and that was a 17-article strategic bilateral agreement between the DRC, the Congo, and the U.S. I think that's the one that's the most critical because it speaks to strategic reserves of minerals. It brings into the scope the Lobito corridor, right, which is Trump is carrying on from the Biden administration. It speaks to the Grand Inga project that the World Bank is vested in, a project that's been, ever since Congo got its independence, we've been talking about Grand Inga. So it's comprehensive in scope, and that's one of the things that, at least for us anyways, that caught our attention, because prior to the signing yesterday, the spokesperson for the president of the Congo laid out the 17 article, proposition, right? And we weren't entirely sure that it was going to be signed yesterday. So there's been a lot of work done in the background around that piece, right? And we'll have more to say about it. And then, of course, there's a bilateral agreement between the between Rwanda and the U.S. And even the guarantors of the agreement, the president of Kenya, William Ruto, the president of Burundi, Ndayishimiye, we saw there was an agreement between the U.S. and Kenya. That was a part of yesterday's effort. So there was a lot, and it's going to take a minute to, unpack all of it so that we can lay it out clearly for people. But there's certain structural elements that I think are noteworthy, even before we get into the agreements, right? It's so important for people to understand that with the Tshisekedi government, right, we're dealing with a neo-colonial regime, right? What does that mean when we say it's a neo-colonial regime? That means its imperatives, that which it responds to, are not the masses of Congolese, but what Samir Amin would call, or Emmanuel Wallerstein would call, the metropole, right? The capitals in the West. The regime is looking outward, responding to Paris, responding to Brussels, responding to London, responding to Washington. In fact, it sees its salvation there. It sees the future of its own regime and of the Congo there, the solutions coming from outside, right? So when Tshisekedi gets back to the Congo today, the territory is occupied. I mean, the east of the country is occupied. But he's coming back, and his coalition organized a motorcade celebration from the airport into the city, right? Because he was at the White House with Donald Trump, right? So the orientation, right? The orientation of a neo-colonial regime of leadership whose minds have yet to be decolonized is outside. That's where the answers lie, right?
Mhm.
That's where it's Donald Trump who's going to end the war, right? Right? It's Donald Trump who's going to end the war in the Congo, right? It's Donald Trump who's going to rescue me, right? So I think that's really important for us, for people who, if you don't know anything about the deal yet and wondering what this is all about, it's important to understand that the leadership, the elite in Kinshasa, and really in Kigali too. Kigali is a neo-colonial setup as well. Even though Kagame is far more savvy than Tshisekedi, and he puts out this anti-Western rhetoric. Make no doubt, have no doubt about it. It's also a neo-colonial regime that's in Kigali. So you have these two neo-colonial regimes coming together in Washington to see what they can get, right? In the case of Kagame, really to consolidate what he's already captured, right? Because Kagame really doesn't need any more than it's been getting from Washington, right? Over the years. So I think it's important to lay that out so that people understand what we're getting into, what the positioning of the president of the DRC and where he sees the salvation of Congo, and he sees it. That's why he travels all around the world. I know people in Kinshasa make fun of him, like, hey, where is the president this time? He's all around the world because he believes, like, I'm going to go get investors to come and invest in the Congo, and that's going to solve our problems, right? So that's important. And then, of course, the number of deals that were signed went beyond, what they call the Washington Accord. There's Washington Accord, Regional Economic Integration Framework, which is a part of that. A deal is signed around that. The strategic bilateral partnership between the United States and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And that's really the meaty one, right? Because we've seen already that the Washington Accord doesn't carry any teeth. Because since that was signed by the foreign ministers on June 27th, right up to today, you have the United Nations Group of Experts, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch. They've all documented, right, since that time, the continued displacement of Congolese population, the recruitment of child soldiers, disappearance of those in occupied territories, continued targeted killings and assassinations, recruitment of children into militia groups. So even the World Food Program of the United Nations have said that, Congolese are starving, dying from hunger because they're not able to go to the fields and farm, and we're not able to bring in humanitarian aid because the humanitarian aid corridor, which is the airport in Goma, has been shut down, right? And
until today.
Until today.
Mm-hmm.
And Kagame spoke about it in his press conference last week. He cleverly said, if I were them, right? That's how he started out. Reporters asked him about the demand for access to humanitarian aid through Goma. And Kagame responds and he says, if I were them, saying that if he were the M23, well, we know he is the M23, right? According to the UN Group of Experts. Rwanda exercise control and command over the M23, right? That's what the UN Group of Experts said. In addition to sending in its soldiers to the side of the M23, right? So he said, if I were them, I would tell them I would tell those who want to access to the humanitarian corridor to address my problems in Goma, to solve my problems in Goma. And when they address my problems in Goma, then we can talk about opening things up.
Sounds like blackmailing for me, right?
But the thing is, it's he doesn't have any problems in Goma, right? This is a huge facade. This notion of 30 years, Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda being the rationale, right, for Kagame to go into the Congo. Remember Gaetan? Not even, I think, a year ago, right? The number one argument that they were making, that Kagame was making at the time, was that we have to be in to protect the Banyamulenge, right?
Yeah.
Tutsis in the Congo. There's hate speech. That was his top argument, right? So he was like throwing different things at the wall to see which one would stick. And the one that has stuck is this FDLR trope, right? That's for all intents and purposes what it is. And we see that Tshisekedi and Congolese administration, they have gone in to sign a deal, right? Tshisekedi was in Serbia, right? A few days ago, and he said, I'm not signing any deal that that consummate this regional economic integration framework, while Rwandan soldiers are still on our soil and the east of our country is occupied. But what did he do yesterday? He signed everything.
You did sign.
He signed everything, right? He signed everything, right? And people in Goma, Bukavu, other parts of Bunagana, other parts of the east, they're still under occupation. There's a peace deal, but they're under occupation. So I think those basic tenets ought to be highlighted so that people have a sense of the perspective or the framework in which all this is unfolding. We're talking about neo-colonial regime subscribing to neoliberal tenets around management of resources and what it takes for an African country to actually develop, right? And I don't even want to say become independent because there's no path to independence through Washington. You know what I'm saying? There's no path to independence through Washington. Certainly no path to stability through Washington. But that's not the understanding of the political elite in Kinshasa, unfortunately. And that's going to work to the detriment of, I'm glad you're bringing that.
Yes.
So explain that, please.
I brought it up because you did mention the FDLR and again, because of this passion that I have for the Congo, I broke down in few episodes, right? Like I talked about the Washington Accord line by line, item by item. I talked about the 2002 Accord that we see on the picture that was signed between the DRC and Rwanda. The DRC president at the time, who seems to be doing cahoot with in cahoot with M23 right now, Joseph Kabila, who's the son of Laurent Desire Kabila, who was assassinated, and then Paul Kagame, and that was in 2002. And yes, for folks Gen Z watching this, Paul Kagame has been president for that long in 2002. And in 2002, if you read at least the United Nations report that talks about in length about this accord, they talk about another armed groups that is coming from Rwanda, the Interhamwe. But in 2002, Brother Maurice, and this is a thing that I always find fascinating, how almost over 20 years later, that we still 22 years later, we still talking about the exact same thing. In 2002, that's the year the FDLR was created. And by the time of that signing, the FDLR existed. But nowhere in that peace accord that they signed, which is voided today because obviously they had to meet again in Qatar, in Lusaka, in Kenya, in Angola, and yesterday in Washington D.C. So, if the FDLR has been a threat, how come they were not mentioned? Not a single time mentioned in that peace accord in 2002. Because they are claiming that the FDLR are folks who had just committed genocide. The group was formed in 2002, but they're not part of that accord. And then 23 years later, now that has been the song. And I had to put it out there because you mentioned that. What is there in this peace accord 2025 that you don't find in that 2002 version? The concept of Operation Collapse is mentioned in that 2002 accord. And I did ask offline, Brother Kambale, why they keep using the same thing? Like, why is it the same term, the same concept? And Brother Maurice, he said, why would they change? It worked. Why would they change something? Sorry, you what did you say?
It works.
Yeah, it worked. Why would they change something that works? They're gonna use the same method, the same strategies, because that is what has been working. And I'm gonna play part of Donald Trump speech.
Okay.
We're gonna speed up, but whenever you feel like you want to jump in and comments, just do it. But again, just for the audience, I haven't watched the whole thing because I was at work. I had stuff to do. Congo doesn't pay my bills, so then I'm like catching up with everyone else, and then also being able to hear these things for the first time and have a conversation with you, and later on even talk about the legal aspect of it and more in-depth analysis next week. So we're gonna do that and comment as we hear, and that's Donald Trump, the 44th and 47th president of the United States.
Well, thank you very much. Wow. This is a nice building, I have to tell you. So this is a special occasion for a lot of reasons, but number one is it's our first occasion in this building using it for peace. And it's all about peace, and it's a great honor. And Marco, you've done a fantastic job in getting it ready, but it's a spectacular building, and we all appreciate it. And very importantly, we're settling a war that's been going on for decades with millions and millions of people killed. And these two gentlemen spent a lot of time backstage talking to each other, and over at the Oval Office. We were at the Oval Office together. It was beautiful. And I think it's just a very important day. And we have other leaders from other countries. And
professionals who apply AI to business earn 56% more globally. And Gen AI.
I'm not paying for YouTube, that's for sure. All right.
I'd love to have you come up, and if you could issue the words that you just issued backstage. It usually doesn't work, you know. It usually never happens. They said it much better before, but you will probably do better up here. But I'd love to have you say how you felt, because it is an amazing day. Great day for Africa, great day for the world, and for these two countries. And they have so much to be proud of. And I want to thank the leaders. I want to thank you very much. It means maybe more because we are here together for the first time ever in this building. Brand new, beautiful building. I don't want to tell you how much it costs because I hear it's a lot. Okay, they don't build inexpensively here. But I just want to thank you very much. So please sit down, everybody.
Wow.
I want to thank everybody for being here. It's a momentous occasion. It's truly incredible setting. It's very few places I've seen like this. In this holy season, we prepare to celebrate the birth of the Prince of Peace. We have come to the U.S. Institute of Peace to sign a historic agreement that will end one of the longest running conflicts anywhere in the world, with far more than 10 million people killed. Today, we commit to stopping decades.
First, where did they get that number? Like,
I mean, every time he speaks, the number goes up. He started out at 7 million, and now he's far more than 10 million. So I guess we can call them Trump numbers.
And just for folks watching, the latest number that we have available, that's the International Rescue Committee. 2007 report talks about 5.4 million, and people usually round up to 6 million dead. So that's the latest report. That's the latest data that we have. 2007, they have not been able to provide accurate data. So we're going to continue.
Decades of violence and bloodshed, and to begin a new era of harmony and cooperation between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda. I want to thank the two courageous leaders. They are courageous leaders. They really are courageous leaders, great people. President Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of the Congo and President Kagame of Rwanda.
My God.
They are amazing people, and they had stories to tell me that were incredible. Really fascinating in so many different ways. Sad and beautiful, both sad and beautiful, and today makes them beautiful. I've just held really fantastic meetings with both men and representatives of other countries where we discussed the importance of upholding this new agreement. Very detailed, powerful agreement. I also want to thank several foreign guests and dignitaries in attendance to celebrate this magnificent event, including the President of Angola. Please, would you stand? And so great to see you. Thank you. The President of Burundi. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Great to see you again.
That was a full house.
Yes,
The
indeed.
President of Kenya. We have the Olympics here. You know, they do very well in the Olympics, those runners. I don't know what the heck you do with those runners, but they are very good. I've been watching them for a long time. So we have the Olympics coming to the United States. You know that. Thank you very much. And you'll come as our guest. Thank you. And the President of the Council of Ministers of Togo. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Togo in the house. Congo.
The Vice President of Uganda.
Uganda. Okay.
Thank you. It's such a beautiful color. Like all these guys are wearing these dark suits. You just stand out for a lot of reasons. Beautiful. The foreign ministers of Qatar.
Okay. Qatar in the house.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Say hello
Can I not?
to
How
my
can they
friend.
not be in the house.
Great man. And the United Arab Emirates. Thank
Okay.
you.
UAE.
Thank
in the
you.
house.
My regards, right?
Of course.
And the chairman of the African Union Commission, who's done a fantastic job. And thank you for all your help. We appreciate all your help.
We should talk about all the
Special
people
group
in
of
the house.
people.
Right?
Yeah.
A very special thanks as well to Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
What did you say?
We should talk about, just as he's listing those countries and names,
Mhm.
I think it's important for people to understand why those people are even there.
Yeah.
You know, so, before the Washington Accord, right?
Mhm.
There was a Nairobi peace process, right? That Uhuru Kenyatta had initiated to try and it was an East African initiative to try and address the conflict in the Congo, or Rwanda's aggression against the Congolese people. And then he mentioned the president of Angola, João Lourenço. Lourenço headed up the Rwanda peace process, right? This is named after Rwanda, Angola. And Lourenço was appointed, you mentioned the African Union, by the African Union to lead that Rwanda peace process, to try and bring Tshisekedi and Kagame together. In fact, Rwanda and the DRC, they met. The Biden administration, National Security Council was deeply engaged in trying to bring the sides together. The U.S. was concerned about things getting out of control in the Congo. They were dealing with Ukraine and Russia. They're dealing with the genocide that was being committed against Palestinians in Gaza, and they wanted to keep a third front on their wraps. So the U.S. was implicated in that. Since the U.S. came in even before we get to that, in December 2024, that Rwanda process was advanced. There's supposed to be a final meeting in December 2024 for there to be a signing of a peace accord between the DRC and Rwanda. This was to take place on African soil, right? It was an African process. The African Union had designated the president of Angola to lead this process.
Kagame didn't show up.
Kagame didn't show up. Now, he didn't show up in December 2024. And it's important to note, not only didn't he show up, but the context in which he didn't show up, right, was that the Democrats had lost the presidential elections. Trump had won, right? Remember, the Democrats were putting pressure on Kagame, not just pressure in diplomatic talks, they were using carrots and sticks, right? And one of the carrots that they put in offered to Kagame, according to former Biden officials in the State Department, was the extension of the Lobito corridor up to Rwanda, right? As an economic incentive for him to sign a deal with the DRC around, peace in the Congo, or at least Rwanda pulling back its support of the M23. So this is December 2024. We're in a transition from the Democrats, led by Joe Biden. Now the Republicans are taking over with President Trump. So you have to figure Kagame reason, I'm going to take my chances with Trump. I'm not going to sign a peace deal now, right? I'm going to take my chances with Trump. And he upped the ante. By the time, 4 or 5 days after Trump was inaugurated, they launched a full-scale offensive to capture the city of Goma, right?
Just like he did in 2012, I believe.
Just like he did in 2012, right? Yes. So this is the second time that Kagame used the M23 to capture Goma. So then what he did was he created facts on the ground. I have control of Goma. Just like in his press conference last week, he said, if I were them, I have Goma. I tell them what my terms are, right, to get access to the airport to get humanitarian aid in. So Nairobi, Kenya, Rwanda, Angola, the African Union, and then of course he brings in. If we move into 2025, when Goma is captured, the east is occupied, Bukavu and other parts of the east are occupied, and now Tshisekedi is on the ropes, right? And he launches a Hail Mary to Donald Trump saying, hey, we saw what happened in the White House between you and Zelensky in Ukraine. He didn't want to give up his minerals for security. Well, we're going to give up ours for security, right? He made that offer to Trump, and Trump responded. And as a part of this whole process, we saw that Qatar was brought in, right, to be a player, because as Kagame and Tshisekedi, they were at each other. Rwanda's occupied Eastern Congo. Qatar was the first one to bring the two presidents together. They went to Doha, right, in the spring of 2025. They just showed up in Doha. People were like, what are they doing together in Doha, right? So Qatar, of course, has economic interests in Rwanda, economic interests in Congo, throughout the continent, really. The same with the United Arab Emirates. And then also, I don't know if Trump already mentioned, he mentioned Togo. Togolese were present at the June signing, and Adama was taken over from João Lourenço to lead the African Union process on the peace process around the Congo, because Lourenço now, he's the head of the African Union. So he couldn't continue to move that process forward. And the process had been broken anyways, since Kagame just didn't show up, right? So you have all of these folks in the room from Qatar, United Arab Emirates, from Kenya, Angola, Togo, representing the African Unions, the representative of the African Union, and then of course Uganda. Ugandan soldiers are in the Congo as we speak, right? Ugandan soldiers are on Congolese people. I know we talk a lot about Rwanda, but Uganda soldiers are underground in the Congo, right? presumably to go after the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces, right? And they're leading what they call Operation Shusha. So what you see here is the coterie of players involved in what's unfolding around the Congo. And what is consistent among them is the economic interests. Even the Congolese elite themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for this is a bounty for them. You're going to have investment dollars coming in. That's, there's just so much that can be said about that. But at least with what Trump laid out in terms of the people in the room, I wanted to share with the audience the history of those people, of those representatives in the room. Not them personally, necessarily, but their country, where they come from, and the role their countries have played leading up to this, what Donald Trump says is a historic signing of an agreement in the newly named Trump Institute of Peace, because the building
they renamed it, yes.
And he gave thanks to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, saying that, this is a great idea you came up with. You did it all on your own. Okay, I'm sure. So, of course, it's a building that's now named after Donald Trump. So it costs a lot of money to refurbish it and get. What interesting to see. It would be interesting to see when the next president comes in, if they're going to just take his name off, if they're going to remove Trump's name off of the Institute of Peace. So, but the peace, quote unquote, peace deal between the DRC and Rwanda has a distinction of being the first in the U.S. The Trump Institute of Peace in Washington, D.C. So maybe you can continue with his.
Yeah, but real quick, because you mentioned Qatar, that they met in Qatar, something on the Congolese side. President Tshisekedi during the campaign had said that he would only meet after the December meeting that President Kagame did not show up, right? That you mentioned that during the campaign, the 2023 campaign, President Tshisekedi had said that he will only meet Tshisekedi. He would only meet his counterpart Paul Kagame in heaven, and few months or weeks after that, they were meeting in Qatar. So there was a friend of mine on X, Joan Mafuta, that I salute. He drew this to be, and he said something along the line. I did not know that Qatar was heaven. So, but that was just it. Yes, I'm going to continue with the speech. Let's go.
Rubio, Marco, please stand. Thank you. And thank you for putting a certain name in that building. I said, boy, that is good. That blew up last night. It's a great honor. It really is. On this building, it's a great honor. Thank you very much. I assume you had a lot to do with that. Just a little bit. Yeah.
I like how Trump goes off.
Appreciate it. And Senior Advisor for Africa, Masad Boulos, who's been fantastic. Thank you, Masad. All of these people, every one of them were indispensable in forging this agreement. Let me also recognize Senators Mike Rounds and Lindsey Graham.
Let me see if I can.
Lindsey, thank you. Mike, wherever you may be. Ronnie is that great. So anymore, doesn't matter. Thank you.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with real.
This. One thing I will not do, pay for you.
Of the Institute for Peace, Darren Beatty. Thank you, Darren, very much. Millions and millions of people have been tragically killed, went on forever, and countless more have been displaced from their homes. Families have been destroyed. It's been a disaster. Many administrations have tried, but probably not too hard, knowing who preceded me. But they tried. It says they've tried, but we tried harder to end this conflict. But they've accomplished, obviously, they accomplished very little because the killing went on at levels that just got worse and worse. And today we're succeeding where so many others have failed. And this has become the 8th war that we've ended in less than 1 year. Such an exciting thing to do. This has been a really, because we're talking about 30 years of fighting. 30
I'm going to
years.
pause there. I need to
Much
pause
more.
there. You said 8th war. That's kind of crazy. 8. It was 7. What's the 8th one?
I mean,
is he counting? I think I have this. Do I have this picture of Fox News showing all the war supposedly that Trump ended? Oh my God, I had sent it in the group chat. Anyways, if somebody watching this, please tag me into something that leads it. I think it was a Fox News showing 7 wars that Trump ended. Let me just Google it. Maybe I'm just. So I wonder what's the 8th one. But anyways, let me just continue.
More than 10 million lives. Last June, thanks to the efforts of Secretary Rubio and Mr. Boulos, Rwanda and the DRC reached a landmark agreement to move toward peace. They started the process. I met with some of their great representatives who are here also. And we started a great process. The compact we're signing today, which will be known as the Washington Accords, everybody sort of liked that name, formalizes the terms agreed to in June, including a permanent ceasefire, the disarmament of non-state forces, provisions for refugees to return to their homes, and justice and accountability for those who have committed illegal atrocities.
So I found the image. That was from the U.S. Department of State. President Trump ended 7 wars in just 7 months. Cambodia, Thailand, Kosovo, Serbia, DRC-Rwanda, Pakistan, India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan. There was a really good video of Mehdi Hassan, who is actually a really good journalist and public speaker, and he's debunking on Zeteo, and he's debunking essentially. But that's 7 wars. So now he says 8. Like, what's the 8th one? But anyways, that was just a comment.
Very importantly, this agreement also creates a new framework for economic prosperity. There's tremendous wealth in that beautiful earth. It's beautiful earth, but it was stained badly with blood, tremendous amounts of blood. But in the region that will support a lasting peace, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda have agreed to more closely integrate their economies with each other rather than fighting, and they'll be doing that. And these two gentlemen are very smart, and I think they liked each other a lot. I spent time with them. I think they liked some people may be surprised. I really do. I think they've spent a lot of time killing each other, and now they're going to spend a lot of time hugging, holding hands, and taking advantage of the United States of America economically like every other country does. So they're going to do very well, but they do have some very valuable things. They're going to have a lot of money and a lot of success, and I think they're going to get along really well. So I hope so. Thank you very much.
So he's being blunt. So they're going to get a lot of money. But the question that I have for you, are we really being integrated in Rwanda's economy? Or are we inviting them to take out? Well, what's Congo's benefit into this peace accord, into this economic aspect of the peace accord? Like, what is Congo even winning economically? Do you know, Brother Maurice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know if you recall a few things. I don't know if you recall the controversy. I think it was one of the ministers in Tshisekedi's government, right? Where he had sought out, he revealed how Tshisekedi went to Kagame to ask Kagame to share his Rolodex with him. I don't know if you recall that.
Yes, and he got sacked after that.
And he got sacked after that because of what he revealed.
It was his personal advisor.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's been this long sense, anyways, that Kagame's got the hookup, so to speak, with Western, investors because of they all seem to flock to Rwanda. So there's an orientation there. But in the regional economic integration framework, it talks about Rwanda serving as a processing, refining, a hub, in that they have the facilities that the Congo doesn't have in order to process minerals coming out of the Congo. I don't see how that benefits the Congo, because according to the International Monetary Fund, from the end of 2021, at the end of 2021, Rwanda was exporting some $300 million worth of gold, right? This is when the Rwandan government, Paul Kagame himself, unleashed the M23. By 2022, we saw they captured Bunagana. So since that time, from end of 2021, when the IMF says Rwanda is exported $300 million plus of gold, right up to today, we see Rwanda is exporting up to $2 billion in gold, right? Since the occupation of east of Congo, different parts of the mines in the Congo since 2022. So it's that illicit trade, trafficking of Congo's minerals under this regional economic integration framework, it now becomes licit. It now becomes legal. It now becomes a part of the agreement and the deal. So there is no direct benefit for Congo in that regard. It's hard to see where that benefit is, other than it's a part of the process that allows the Tshisekedi government to, one of the concessions, because the way this deal is set up, it's set up in a way that really puts Congo as the loser of this war, right? Because it's lost territory, it's lost human lives, right? It's lost resources, right? And now they're entering into a deal without the territory being given back, right? Without the lives that have been lost, securing any kind of justice for those families, right? Without any kind of accountability whatsoever. So not just as it relates, Gaetan, to the Rwanda economic part, but just overall, there has the Congolese people, under the leadership of Tshisekedi, are losing big time, because they're still under occupation. Contrary to what Donald Trump has stated, the war hasn't ended, right?
Not at all.
The clashes have intensified, depending on which part of the East you're speaking about. So it's in a lot of respects, it can be kind of depressing, to see such fanfare and such hoopla while Congolese people are still dying, and children are ducking on the tables. Of a video we shared on our Instagram page yesterday, because there's crossfire between the M23 and the Wazalendo and the Congolese military and the Rwandan soldiers. So it's just not a very pleasant picture.
Yeah, definitely. Let's continue.
Watch. Look at them. Look at the way they love each other.
That was sarcasm.
Thank you. So I have a lot of confidence in both leaders. We'll keep these commitments. I know they're going to keep them and follow through on the agreement and create much brighter future for the people of their countries and their heroes within their countries because of today. This is a big story. And so much is being written and said. All of the newscasts have it at the top of the list. And they are heroes, and we want to keep it that way. Today, the United States is also signing our own bilateral agreements with the Congo and Rwanda that will unlock new opportunities for the United States to access critical minerals and provide economic benefits for everybody. And we'll be involved. We're sending some of our biggest and greatest companies over to the two countries, and we're going to take out some of the rare earth and take out some of the assets and pay, and everybody's going to make a lot of money. These are just two of the many new agreements related to mineral supplies that my administration has achieved this year, including with Australia, Japan, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, South Korea, and many other countries. With all of these agreements, we're forging new economic security partnerships that protect the interests of America and our friends and partners, and a core feature of my administration's national security strategy, a big part of which is the tariffs. We're taking in trillions of dollars in tariffs. Nobody's ever seen anything like it, and it's given us really great national security. We'll be paying down debt. We'll be making distributions to people. And we're really doing a job. It's amazing. I was with a gentleman, the future king of Saudi Arabia, and you've heard me say this a couple of times, but
for years, nearly every solution for erectile dysfunction has focused on one thing:
I think
blood
YouTube
flow.
is really trying to make me pay for it.
Gotta get that premium guy time.
No, man, I'm not doing that.
And actually, Qatar is represented today, and UAE is represented, and your leader said the exact same thing, different words, but the exact same thing, that 1 year ago, they thought our country was dead. And now our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world. We're the hottest country anywhere in the world. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We have over $18 trillion. That's just in 10 months.
And now it's just him talking about himself.
Being invested in $1 trillion in history is actually the people that we named. Some of the others that unfortunately we didn't name, we just couldn't do that. But for your vision and for your courage, because it's made it possible to begin healing old wounds and train good men, and they're two very doing a great job. These are two men that are doing a great job, and again.
Okay, I think that's all, because the rest is just talk about himself, because that's Donald Trump. That's what he does. But he said something very interesting that he said that everybody was gonna make money, right? Was gonna make a lot of money. But what he meant is really the United States is going to make a lot of money. But hasn't the United States been still benefiting from or getting Congo's minerals despite the war? Because it gives the impression that all these years the US has been absent, that the US hasn't been buying Congolese minerals, whether it is directly from from the Congolese government or from like third parties, right? Why trying to frame the narrative as if the United States was never present, and now they are? Like, why would they reframe it that way?
I mean, you have to, when Trump speaks, President Trump speaks, you have to take it with a pinch of salt, right? I mean, he just declared, he said that the war is ended. It's not true, right? So he speaks in a way that presents himself as being the answer, right? Like, whatever good things he's trumpeting, right? He's saying, well, they've never been done before. It's only when I came along that we have peace in the Congo. It's only when I came along that we're raking in trillions of dollars. It's unprecedented. So he presents things in a way where you think that history begins with him, right? So it really doesn't, you can't really go make an analysis based on what he says like that, right? certain things that he says. So we know the history of U.S. corporate engagement, in the Congo. Just think about it. When the M23 and Rwandan soldiers were moving across the east of the Congo this spring, they captured a territory called Walikali, right?
Yeah.
Walikali is rich in tin, right? The Bisi mine that's there in Walikali. And that mine, the mines are there, the concession is there, is owned by an American company, Alphamine. When President Trump appointed a senior advisor to Africa, Masad Boulos, and he went to Africa to speak with Tshisekedi and Kagame, one of the demands he made was for the Walikali, the Bisi mine, the Alphamine mine, to be reopened, for the M23 to pull back, because when the mine was shut down, when it was captured by the M23, it had a significant impact on the tin market. We saw tin prices shut up, right? Because that mine, I think it produces, I don't know, up to 10% of tin coming out of, into the market. And so the Alphamine couldn't operate anymore. So one of the demands that, Masad Boulos made of Kagame and the M23 was for them to back off of Walikali, so that Alphamine can start operating again. Alphamine is an American company, one of the American companies there in the region. The largest copper mine at one point, one of the largest copper concessions anyways, was owned by an American company, Freeport McMoran, before they sold it to the Chinese, right? So American presence, as they've been in the Congo in terms of owning mineral concessions, mining rights in the Congo. It's just that over the past 2 decades, that the Chinese have, they've had a strategic plan to capture transitional minerals and critical minerals. When you mentioned the founding of the FDLR, right around that time, the United Nations in 2001, 2002 published 3 reports, and they ran about the illicit exploitation, illegal exploitation of minerals in the Congo. And there were a host of American companies from Pennsylvania, from Massachusetts, from the Carolinas, from Ohio. All of these American companies were listed in the United Nations report of violating the Organization of Economic Development, Economic Cooperation and Development guidelines, OECD guidelines. So there's just a long history of American companies being engaged in the Congo. I think another aspect of it is what Trump may be referring to also is another level of investors coming in, right? Where you, if you look at the bilateral deal, the strategic partnership between the DRC and the U.S., the deal that was signed yesterday, which it's 17 articles, right, in that deal. So we really have to do a program where we just go through it one by one, by time to break it up. But what you see in that strategic partnership deal accord is that they talk about the Congolese government creating a viable business environment, right, for U.S. investors to come in. So it's
Which
another.
Should be really hard, knowing how corrupt the Congolese government is right now.
Yeah, I already paid for that. We know how the corrupt Congolese government is. And interestingly enough, that's something that Rwanda offers that the Congo doesn't. The Doing Business Index, Rwanda is a much higher level than the Congo. But in any case, starting even from the Biden administration, right? They've been trying to, the U.S. government, this is not just Trump, right? But the U.S. government has been trying to create an environment in the Congo where another type of investor can come in, right? The Black Rocks and the financial firms, right, can come in and invest. Remember, and one of the efforts that the Biden administration was pursuing was to try and move Dan Gertler out of the way, right? Because Dan Gertler is on the sanctions list. He has control of a number of concessions, and U.S. investors wanted to come in, and they're saying, well, this guy is like, he's a corrupt figure. He's on the sanctions list of the Department of Treasury. We're not going to go in there and invest with this, in that kind of environment. So the Biden administration was trying to work out a deal where they offer, hundreds of millions of dollars to Gertler for him to give up his concessions, so that American investors can get access to those concessions and be more confident in investing in the Congo, because this one corrupt individual that they have, that the United States has on the sanctions list, would be like out of the way, and there'll be a sign of, a more transparent space for U.S. investors to come in. So that's probably part of what Trump may be referring to as well. Trying to the creation of an environment that's conducive for U.S. investors and would enable, different agencies in the U.S. government to also come in and back those investments, right? Like the Export-Import Bank, for example, or the International Finance Development Corporation. They're talking about raising billions of dollars in concert with Wall Street hedge funds in order to invest in the Congo and really in other parts of Africa as well. So that's some of the, I guess you can say, reasons why we see Trump maybe saying some of the things that he's saying about investment or about the type of investment that the U.S. is going to be doing in the Congo.
Yeah, and there is so I'm gonna play now the rest. I wanted to see if I could let me see profile. So that was a video that I recorded a couple years ago with Cocktail and Capitalism. So I salute them. And that was regarding the White House under Biden trying to remove Dan Gertler from the sanction list. So listen. This person named Amos Hochstein. The dude is the current White House senior advisor to President Biden for energy and investment. And he says something very interesting in the New York Times. When we said that we would go to the moon, nobody knew how to get there. We just said we would, and we made it happen. So that is how we have to approach this energy transition. End of quote. So you have Joe Biden's senior advisor literally suggesting that we should not care about the fact that 40,000 children are forced to work in the mine, that we should not care about Mr. Gertler's uses of corruption to bribe Congress elites to acquire all those companies, right? That we should not care about those armed groups, over 6 million people who died since 1996. We have 7.1 million people displaced as of October 23. Joe Biden's administration clearly is showing us that by abetting genocide in Gaza, obstructing criminal investigation against Benjamin Netanyahu, and easing sanctions on Dan Gertler, at the end of the day, the U.S. does not care about human rights. That the U.S. does not care about international law. that the US does not care about black and brown bodies. Either it is from Gaza Strip to the Congo mine, because we are disposable anyways. So that's the Cocktail and Capitalism. So folks should go ahead and go and listen to that podcast. But I'm going to show the rest of it, because we're now gonna hear from President Tshisekedi's brother, like he said himself, President Kagame, that was his brother a couple years ago when everything was fine.
And then the president of DRC doing a great job. These are two men that are doing it.
Okay.
Excellency Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, Excellencies, heads of state and government and former heads of state, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin with some words of thanks. First, to my fellow heads of state and government from Africa, your presence here confirms that these efforts enjoy the broad support necessary to succeed. I also thank Minister of State Kulaifi, representing His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad of Qatar. The role of Qatar has been absolutely central in getting us to this point. But of course, the biggest vote of thanks goes to President Donald Trump. No one was asking President Trump to take up this task. Our region.
Monday.com, the opposite of any work platform we tried in the past.
From the headlines. But when the president saw the opportunity to contribute to peace, he immediately took it. This conflict has lasted for 30 years. We have seen countless mediations and efforts, but none has succeeded in resolving the underlying issues. President Trump introduced a new and effective dynamism that created the space for breakthroughs. His approach is even-handed, never taking sides.
When the US clearly took sides.
He orients us toward the future, not the past, emphasizing that the dividend of peace is prosperity and investment, including from the United States. More importantly, President Trump's approach is pragmatic. The process has not become an end in itself. All of these elements filter down to his dedicated team, and here I want to single out Secretary Rubio and Masad Boulos for special appreciation. We would not be here today without their efforts. And as a result, we have the clearest and most viable path forward that we have ever had. These accords provide everything needed to end this conflict once and for all. If this agreement falters and things do not work out as they are supposed to, the responsibility will not lie with President Trump, but with ourselves. It's up to us in Africa, working with our partners to consolidate and expand this peace. There will be ups and downs on the road ahead. There is no doubt about it. Rwanda, I know, will not be found wanting. I can assure you of that. Our only objective is and has always been for our country to be safe and secure after having endured so much tragedy. We now only want to look forward in confident expectation of a prosperous and stable future. Mr. President, Excellencies, I thank you for your kind attention.
Okay. To be fair, that was an okay speech. But the problem that I have with his speech is that it makes it seem like Rwanda is not the occupier here, Brother Maurice. What did you think of this speech?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we often say that Congo's been caught in a death trap, the Congolese people, for the past 3 decades. A death trap that's been imposed on them by their neighbors, Rwanda and Uganda, with the backing of the West, right? You showed earlier the picture with Kagame and Kabila, 2002. The same problem that exists in 2002, the person in the picture, is the same problem that exists in 2025. Like these guys, these authoritarian figures, they've invaded the Congo twice, 1996 and 1998. That picture there, the 2002, that was a part of, and you see Thabo Mbeki in the background, that was a part of the process the peace process, to end the war, right? The 1998 war, which the peace agreement did officially. But it didn't end the conflict, because what Kagame and Museveni did was to instrumentalize different militia groups, proxy groups, to destabilize the Congo, to wage this war of aggression and plunder for another two decades, right? So the problems that he's talking about, addressing the problem, is the problem, right? There hasn't been, even going all the way back to the International Criminal Tribunal on Rwanda. I highly recommend people read Julie Rever's book, In Praise of Blood, right? Where she delves into how Kagame was not held to account for the crimes that he committed, that the Rwandan Patriotic Front committed during the Rwandan genocide, right? The U.S. even went so as far as to fire anyone during the tribunal, Carlo Del Ponte, if they dare investigated what the crimes that Paul Kagame and the Rwandan Patriotic Front committed. So what's been consistent over the last 3 decades is a lack of accountability as it relates to the war crimes, right? Crimes against humanity, right? Even crimes of genocide, according to the United Nations, that person, Paul Kagame, and the people around him haven't been able to been held to account. Not that there hasn't been attempts, right? Let's be clear. The Spanish courts, under the principle of universal jurisdiction, right, issued an arrest warrant for 40 of Rwanda's top officials, right? Kagame is the head of state, so he was absolved from that. And they snagged one of those officials in London, I think in 2013 or so, over about a decade ago or so, and they were arrested on those those warrants that was issued by the Spanish courts. The person was arrested, and the person who came to the Rwandan general's rescue was none other than Tony Blair's wife, right? She's the one.
Wow.
She's the one who came, as an attorney, and you can pull up the general's name in the Rwandan general that was arrested in the UK. His name is just escaping me right now, but we'll pull it up. And so attempts to hold these guys to account. Even the Congolese attempted to bring them to the International Court of Justice for their crimes, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and plunder of Congolese soil. And Rwanda is not party to the Court of Justice, so they couldn't bring him, but they were able to bring Uganda, right, to account, right, at the International Court of Justice. So the problem has been, the source of the problem, these leaders. Kagame's been in power for over 3 decades. Museveni's been in power for over 4 decades. They have invaded the Congo twice, supported and put up proxy militia groups inside of the Congo, right to this very day. And they've only been able to do that the way that they have because they've gotten the support, the backing from the likes of the United States, the United Kingdom, France, other European powers. So this question of accountability has not been Karenzi. Thank you, General Karenzi, right? And he's the same guy. He was on the international arrest warrant list for the Spanish courts, but Karenzi was also the guy who was in Kisangani. He was one of the Rwandan soldiers in Kisangani in 2000, right? Leading Rwandan soldiers when Rwanda and Uganda were fighting each other in Kisangani in the so-called 6-day war over control of Congo's minerals, right? So this question of lack of accountability, and we cannot overstate it, the question of no delivery of justice to the Congolese people. There's a modicum of justice around the International Court of Justice ruling against Uganda, but Rwanda was not party to that. And then this impunity that has been allowed to exist. I shared with you Dr. Mukwege's statement just a few days ago. Maybe you can bring it up for folks, where he gets right to the heart of the matter as to why the instability has persisted, right? Where he talks about the lack of accountability, the lack of justice, the free reign that's been given to the likes of Kagame, so that he's presented as even in that speech, Gaitan, he presents himself as the aggrieved party, right? Now, Gaitan, think about this. He talks about the root problems not being addressed, right? And then you have to address the root problems, right? Now, he talks as if he's the aggrieved party, Gaitan.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Over this period, I really want people to understand this. Over this period, these 3 decades, war of aggression and plunder led by Rwanda, right? Over these 3 decades, Rwanda's population today is 13 million people, around 13, 14 million people, right? Over these 3 decades, we've seen at least 6 million Congolese perish because in large part of this war of aggression against the Congolese people. 6 million at least, right? And at the same time, we've seen 7 million Congolese internally displaced. So the size of the Rwandan population, right? That's the Congolese people who have been devastated by this 3-decade war of aggression and plunder. And here it is in 2025, this man, Paul Kagame, stands up in front of the world and said the root problems have not been addressed, right? What about the 13 million Congolese, the size of the Rwandan population, that's either been killed or displaced over the past 3 decades? right? He's not the aggrieved party. He's the aggressor. He's not the aggrieved party. He's the aggressor that's been permitted to lead a war of aggression and plunder because of who's backing him. United States, United Kingdom, European Union, France, to this very day, right? Because he's made himself of service, right, to the empire, right? Made himself of service to Israel. We'll take your asylees. You know, you kick out your asylees, we'll take them to Rwanda. Of service to Boris Johnson of the UK. You want to kick out your asylees, we'll take them here. Of service to the United States. Oh, Trump, you want to get rid of your asylees? Oh, we'll take the first Iraqi that you send, and then $100,000 per person, whoever else is coming. Have service to the French, right? We'll send our soldiers as mercenaries into Cabo Delgado, into Mozambique, in order to protect Total Energy's oil interests, right? So he's not the aggrieved party. He's presenting like, oh, we're finally, Mr. Trump, you're finally getting to the root problem. You are the problem, Mr. Kagame.
I think
you are the problem.
I think we can all agree that Paul Kagame is a narcissistic psychopath, because you cannot victimize yourself consistently when you are the one who has created the issue. And I think it's very important maybe for me to read, because I haven't read that letter. Maybe with folks.
It's very important. If people are wondering what the Congolese or some Congolese figures are saying, this is a friend online, Dr. Mukwege's letter. Highly recommended. Share it in the chat so that people can get access to it. And he lays it out, exquisitely as to why what we saw in Washington yesterday was farcical and had little or nothing to do with the reality of the Congolese people who are under occupation. And the person who wrote this letter, this Nobel Peace Prize laureate, Gaitan, it's important for people to know, he is in exile. He is in exile. He cannot go to Bukavu. He cannot go back there to the occupied territory to care for the women, the reason why he won the Nobel Peace Prize in the first place.
Because right? he has a hospital there that treats women who have been raped.
Right?
Pansy, exactly.
So, if there's peace, Donald Trump should go on a visit to the Pansy with Dr. Mukwege, take him to Bukavu. Seeing there's so much peace there, have Donald Trump do a delegation, send Marco Rubio and all of them with Dr. Mukwege to Bukavu. And see so that he can show them and say, see, here's the peace that I'm talking about. No, this man is in exile. He can't go back there. There's been attempts on his life already, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was Kagame who tried to assassinate him when his driver got killed a number of years ago. Right, incidentally, right after he made a United Nations speech, pointing his finger at Rwanda for being a major source of the instability that we see in the east of the Congo, and Paul Kagame himself, right?
What do you think about me reading this?
Please, I think you have to.
Okay, sure. All right. I'm going to read it. Statement on the Washington and Doha processes jeopardizing the future of the DRC. For more than 150 years, the history of Congo. Let me. There is here. Hold on. Okay, there you go. For more than 150 years, the history of Congo has been shaped by extreme powers, often at the expense of the aspiration of the people. Today, as Congolese women and men continue to bear an unbearable human cost, peace initiatives are once again being designed far from them, in foreign capitals without transparency, without inclusion, and without any genuine desire to address the root causes of the conflict. How long will these cycles continue? How long will we see agreements negotiated without the people, illegitimate and incapable of bringing about a just and lasting peace? The Washington and Doha processes, driven primarily by foreign economic and financial interests, unfortunately follow the same pattern. The Doha Framework Agreement is presented as progress, yet it offers neither bringing mechanism nor a clear timeline, nor implementation guarantees, nor provisions to dismantle the culture of impunity. Although only two of the 8 protocols have been initiated, the detainee release mechanism September 14th and the ceasefire monitoring the verification mechanism October 14th, the M23 and the Congo River Alliance AFC have nevertheless continued offensive operations and violating the ceasefire, undermining the implementation of the Doha framework. These processes suffer from a deep lack of participation, transparency, and inclusion. They are bilateral, even though the crisis is fundamental region with the direct involvement of Uganda and Burundi. Opaque, while the Congolese people are exhausted by backdoor maneuvering whose consequences they alone endure. Contrary to international law, as they tend to normalize an armed aggression instead of putting an end to it. Furthermore, they ignore victims, local communities, and genuine actors. I think I'm gonna show the next page here. Oh, sorry, what? Sorry, what are you saying?
It's a long piece. You can share it in the link and have people read it.
Yeah,
I think they got the gist of what he's saying. But that first paragraph is interesting as well.
The very first one.
This one, it must be emphasized that the signing.
Oh, yeah. It must be emphasized that the signing of the Doha Framework Agreement comes at the time when Rwanda has not withdrawn its troops from Congolese territory and continues to direct M23 operations in occupied areas in blatant violation of UN Security Council Resolution 2773. These diplomatic initiatives, devoid of coherent sequencing and minimal guarantees, amount to a succession of non-events. Preference communications, yet no improvements on the ground. So I think he went really hard, honestly.
Oh no, it's I encourage people to, if they're looking for a really succinct critique of this 2025 processes, Dr. Mukwege's letter, really gets to the heart of the matter, right? Violation of international agreements, violation of Congolese territorial sovereignty, diminishing an exclusion of the victims from the processes that are in place, a lack of transparency, profound opaque nature of these deals. The economics and finance being the priority as opposed to the welfare of the people and questions of justice. All of he hits all of the points of just about everything that's wrong with these processes and the extent to which it's the processes that are in place, these agreements that are being signed, really don't get to the heart of the matter, and really don't. They're signed in the name of the people, but the people are not included, and the people are certainly are not beneficiaries. The signing yesterday didn't do anything to assuage the concerns of people in Goma, or in Bukavu, or in Walikale, or any other parts of the Congo that's in the east of the country that's catching hell right now.
I'm not sure.
If you can share that in the link, share that.
Yes, I will. We will post it on our Instagram and social media accounts on X, on Instagram, the full speech for people to read for themselves. I'm not sure if they are translating when Tshisekedi is speaking, obviously in French. If they are not,
they are.
They are. Okay, let me play it.
Mr. the President of the United States, Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the delegations, distinguished guests, as we have just placed our signatures at the bottom of the joint declaration enshrining the Washington agreements for peace and prosperity, I do feel, on behalf of the people of Congo, a deep gratitude and clear hope. First of all, I would like to express quite solemnly our deep thanks to the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump. I would like to thank his administration, and also wish to thank the American people for the critical role that they played as doing for the rapprochement, the closening between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. To these thanks, I also bring in all of our regional partners and our international partners who, thanks to their commitment and engagement, have consistently made this critical moment possible in the road to peace. First and foremost, we have Sheikh Yanim bin Ahmad Adani. We have President João Manuel Lourenço Gonçalves, who is the president of Angola and the actor. They bring together under a coherent architecture a declaration of principles of a peace agreement and also the regional economic integration framework to provide to the peoples of the region a new perspective, a new outlook, namely to finally overcome the cycle of violence, of forced displacements, of mistrust, to defiance, in order to begin a new era of friendship, cooperation, and prosperity, all shared together. For those involved, the Democratic Republic of Congo takes this solemn commitment to implement with complete sincerity all of our obligations that stem from this agreement. We will do this with seriousness, with rigorousness, and also with a constant care for peace and the security of our populations, for the unity and the integrity of our territory. We do hope that thanks with the same seriousness that the Republic of Rwanda will also respect fully the letter and the spirit of the commitments made here in Washington. We are reaching out for a peaceful cooperation based on mutual respect, non-interference, and the joint struggle against the armed groups, the end of all support to negative forces, and the beginning of fair prosperity on behalf of our two populations. I do believe this day is the beginning of a new path. A demanding path, yes, indeed, quite difficult, but this is a path where peace will not just be a wish and aspiration, but a turning point. The Democratic Republic of Congo will fully play its part with dignity, with consciousness and consistency, and with the support of our partners. We will remain watchful, vigilant, but not pessimistic. We'll be clear-eyed, but resolutely optimistic. These Washington agreements for peace and prosperity must be for our peoples a symbol of an irreversible commitment to turn the page of confrontations and to open a new era of cooperation and sustainable peace throughout the region. Thank you.
Of course, you can hear that he came with his whole clique to support him. Really ridiculous. But I'm gonna pause there. I think that's everything that we wanted to hear about this peace accord or the signing. And he himself, I did not hear anything strong that he already promised, because he talked about peace. He said that he wouldn't sign until the Rwanda would withdraw their troops, and they haven't. And not only they haven't, and then you mentioned that at the beginning. Let me see if I can pull that up. While we're essentially meeting to sign, there is this image that my sister Maud Salome Kila posted, and brother, you mentioned that at the beginning, Brother Maurice, that kids like the M23 folks were fighting with the Wazalendo, who are a group of Congolese men and women who are organized, armed to essentially fight and resist the occupation. And these are children in school. Essentially, as you can see, she wrote, and today the children of Mudaka were huddled away, anguished by the sound of gunfire and the arrival of Rwandan M23 militiamen. And those vans in Washington with manipulative messages about supposed Tutsi genocide in Congo. What a circus. The American power is rubbing its hands. That's what Maud Salome Kila wrote. And that image that I'm not showing, I need to show y'all. Y'all need to see that. And this image of children on the ground, hiding because they heard gunshots. You explain to them that a peace accord was signed in Washington, D.C., they will not understand that this is peace to them. They will not believe that what they're living and what is being said by the President of the United States, the number one nation, powerful nation in the world, talks about ending a war in the Congo. But they have to hide because of gunshots. They have to live in fear because of the occupier invading the territory of their ancestors, of the parents, of the family. That is the reality that you see on the ground that you will not see in mainstream media. Because the mainstream media will tell you the narrative that will fit whatever agenda that they're pursuing. So, Brother Maurice, your reaction to President Tshisekedi's speech, and also in contrast with the reality on the ground.
You know, what came to mind, Brother Gaitan, is how the word peace is being bastardized by these leaders, right? They're saying, well, we're signing a peace agreement, peace has arrived. This is a historic peace accord. And the reality is that those children, they're not experiencing any kind of peace, right? People we speak to on a regular basis in the East, they're not experiencing peace. And you know what they say to us, Gaitan? You know what they say? People always ask what we can do. You know, one of the requests coming from folks on the ground who are on the occupation, they say, tell the truth. Tell people what's really happening here. Tell people that there is no peace. Tell people that we're catching hell. Tell people that there is no security. Tell people that we don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next, right? So, you know, the influencers out there, those on social media, amplify these voices. Be a counterforce to the propaganda that's coming out of Kigali, Kinshasa, and Washington, right? You know, show those children who have to cower because of the gunshots that in a space that these leaders are saying we now have peace, right? That we're putting up on a list and checking it off as peace, when it's anything but, right? And we're to know that, you know, a prerequisite for peace is justice, accountability. And Dr. Mukwege just shared with us that that's not even a part of the equation, right? So if that's not a part of the equation, the results, you know, you're into computers and technology. You know, the computer scientists used to have a term, I guess they still do, garbage in, garbage out, right? So if there, you know, there is no substance, you know, if garbage is going into these deals, then garbage is going to come out, and we're going to see what we see on the ground: children hiding under their desks because of the continued war that's being waged primarily against civilians, right, in the east of the Congo. So yeah, you know, President Tshisekedi, you know, as you know, his words really do not mean much in terms of if you say he's not going to do something until X or Y is done, you can expect him to, to not hold to whatever he said initially. How do you sign an agreement and call it a peace agreement when your country's still occupied? I don't. It's kind of hard to square that. How do you sign an agreement where the whole world says, through the United Nations Security Council, that the aggressor needs to withdraw its soldiers immediately without precondition, but yet the soldiers still there, and you sign an agreement as if that the issue's there's been some kind of advance or progress. So it's really the explanation, of course, is that he's looking to benefit elsewhere. That peace for his people, peace for the people in the East, is really not a priority. What's a priority is the triumphal show that we see in Kinshasa, where they say, "Oh, he was in the White House with Donald Trump, and he's bringing back investments." Really? So, not much.
Yeah. Yeah, and something that I shared at the beginning, it was a video that I shared at the beginning, but I'm going to share part of it. The point about the number of refugees that has grown from the Congo. From 2002 all the way to 2022, all the way to 2024. And I'm only showing from 2022 to 2024, but the USCIS database even goes all the way back to 2014. And that trend has remained the same in terms of refugees' arrival in the United States. In terms of, let me see if I can just add this as a video instead, so for people to really see what's going on. Yes, this one. And in terms of the number of refugees in the United States, in terms of the number of people fleeing the Congo and coming to relocate and live and start their lives fresh in the United States. They leave the Congo, they leave the war, they leave the dictatorship, they leave the poverty, and they come in the United States.
So you're saying, the leading refugees in the U.S. are coming from the Congo? That's what the chart is saying?
That's what they have been saying. That's what the data shows. The data shows that the DRC is the leading number, like the number one country in terms of refugees. The DRC, not Iraq, not Palestine, not Somalia, not Venezuela, not Afghanistan, not Ukraine. The DRC is. And you ask yourself why? Because of the conditions that have been created for Congolese people to live hell, being invaded by the neighbors, slaughtered, killed, like we see on this one, where it's a kid that is being treated because a bullet hit that kid, and you can see another one, and another kid on the floor. That's the reality, and I'm sorry, I apologize about those images, but that's the reality of people on the ground. And you ask yourself, what is peace for these people then? Is it a piece of paper that was signed in Washington, D.C.? Or is it the fact that they need to go to school without being worried about bullets hitting them, without hearing the sound of bullets? I'm going to play one more time the video regarding the video that I posted regarding that I posted at the beginning of the show would happen when you allow a country to invade Congo, when you allow Rwanda to invade Congo and displace millions. And I said more than 7 million people displaced. You create perpetual asylees. You create perpetual refugees that can no longer live in the country. And we had Raphael talk about how the people of the Congo are being ethnically cleansed.
But what makes us cry is part of genocide because they trying to destroy community around there to come to go and change the situation, which is in DRC, our country. So we've been protesting, we've been breaking silence about genocide in Kivu, which Rwanda imposed to us as a puppet.
Who profit from the war want those lands to be empty, or want those lands to be repopulated by other people. He said it, I didn't say it. And that's the narrative that you hear from most Congolese people when you ask about them. You ask about why they're getting killed. So, as we are literally ending this and talking about what we need to do as people, and somebody from Pan-African Lifestyle said the number is skewed because there are people claiming to be Congolese that aren't. Okay, that's a good point, because I've met some of those people, but still, right? It still shows that the DRC is the #1 country in terms of refugees arrival, right? So that's still a fact. That remains a fact, right? Do you want to say something, Brother Maurice?
Oh no, I was just concurring.
Yeah.
That, even if the numbers are skewed, the fact that the number is already large enough for the DRC to be out front, which is, truly interesting to see that it's the DRC that's producing that largest number of refugees coming to the U.S.
Yeah, and what I keep saying is that the DRC is literally a byproduct of the U.S. foreign policy, that there are imposed dictators that have been, getting rich, that have been violating human rights, that have been killing them, that have been impoverishing them, that have been siphoning the funds from the World Bank, from the IMF, from other countries, while they die under the bullets or they die from hunger. They're being killed by those foreigners that envy their lands, because it's rich in minerals, because it's rich in fresh water, because it's rich in lands from which plants and fruits and crops can be produced. These are the people that are today that we say are occupied. This is the Rwandan government. This is the Ugandan government. And at Friends of the Congo, we said that the Congo Free State was recognized as such because a US president permitted. At the Berlin Conference, Grover Cleveland, the very first one to recognize Congo Free State, led by Leopold II. The very first time that we have, I would say, probably that the notion that we have about multinational companies coming together and exploiting, that was the Congo Free State. That I could have an agreement on France owning Senegal. They could have an agreement on the UK being the colony, being the if I can say that South Africa being a colony of the UK. They had an agreement on that. They had an agreement of Angola being colonized by Portugal. But they could not get an agreement. They could not come in agreement on who as a country will colonize the Congo. So they said, we all going to colonize the Congo, hence Congo Free State. Grover Cleveland, the US president. And because the US foreign policy created the Congo, because of the dictators that we've seen over the years, because we have seen the assassination, the murder of Patrice Lumumba, the very first elected Congolese official, the very first elected Congolese official, killed, brutally murdered. And we know because there are books, there are transcripts, there are archived, there are documents, and even things that the CIA themselves put out there to say that, hey, we were involved into plotting the assassination of a foreign leader, Patrice Emery Lumumba. That it is still the US that imposed Mobutu for 32 years in the Congo. It is the US that funded or allowed a rebel group to be born essentially in Rwanda, the AFDL, backed by also Uganda, to overthrow Mobutu. It is the US that allowed Joseph Kabila to lead for 18 years in power. And it is the US because you have evidence of Tshisekedi not having won the election. You have the Senate, the majority leader at the Senate speak about Tshisekedi not winning the election, not having won the election, yet the US government allowed him to lead. It is on the record. Brother Maurice with me here said that the Biden administration tried to convince Paul Kagame to withdraw his troops to stop his advancement by proposing him part of the Lobito corridor, which was still in the Congo because he was occupying one of the richest region, the Rubaya mine, reaching coltan. That is in Congo. Why would you propose offer that to Rwanda? And yet Rwanda said no, they don't want it because it's not enough. They want the whole thing, the whole cake. And at Friends of the Congo, we always invite, and I'm going to do the exact same call today, to join us, freecongo.org. Freecongo.org, because there are many ways for you to be involved. We have been for the whole year, and we are in December today. And for years, we have been demonstrating at the Rwandan embassy. And we also call on you to organize protests in front of the Rwandan embassy if you are in the US. We've been talking about don't visit Rwanda and how this is somehow cleansing, right? Distracting you and I from the reality of what the Rwandan government is doing in the Congo. Do not visit Rwanda. Do not allow Paul Kagame to be essentially washed of his crimes. We also invite you to write a letter to member of Congress. Send that urgent letter, and you can do that if you visit freecongo.org, to US lawmakers to demand that your tax dollar stop funding conflict in the Congo. Stop funding conflicts anywhere in the world. There is also option for you, and I'm going to relate if you're in the UK and you're watching us today, you're in Europe, you're watching us today. Congolese Action Youth Platform has been doing that work. And then because we are the end of the year campaign, we are fundraising $100,000 because your money has been saving lives. Your money has been helping us do the work that we do. So if you don't have time to be involved, if you don't have time to send letters, if you don't have time to even watch, you can donate. If you have the money, you can donate. And then 5, spread the word. Spread the word. Share what we are talking about today. Share everything that you see on the Congo. Share our videos. Retweet us. Repost us. Because it is in that specific moment that truth is needed, that truth is required. Truth in the midst of narrative being shaped to make you forget about the reality on the ground. Spread the word so that when you hear narratives that dehumanize the Congos, narratives that talks about a peace that not even children can see, that you get to say, no, that's not true. And you call that lie out. So freecongo.org, there you're going to see steps for us or for you to take actions. And I'm going to let Brother Maurice, I'm not sure if you have something to say to kind of like close out.
Everything that you've shared, Gaitan, let people know, in spite of all these forces arrayed against the Congolese people are organizing, movement building, assuming agency on the front lines. The United Nations World Food Program said that the humanitarian corridor is cut off and they can't get in. But Congolese people are on the front lines providing aid. Neighbors are supporting neighbors. We have Basanja Coalition, a remarkable formation in all parts of the country, exercising agency. So, in spite of everything that we've said today, it's vital for people to understand that Congolese people are taking action on the front lines, in the rainforest, in the mines, front lines of the conflict, in the west of the country. So, what they ask of you is to be in support of them, to amplify their stories, to be in solidarity, to be partners, to be strong allies. That's what they ask of us. So going to freecongo.org, visiting freecongo.org, taking the actions there, and being a part, getting involved, taking action, joining the movement, that's a really strong way in which you can show up for organizers on the front lines in the Congo. So just to co-sign, endorse everything you just said, Gaitan, and thanks for, hosting this initial foray into this Washington Accord, because it's what was discussed in Washington yesterday has real life implications for people on the ground in the Congo. So those of us who are outside of the Congo, it's vital that we be informed, that we be engaged, and that we stand in solidarity and support to our brothers and sisters on the front lines in the Congo.
Yes, and guys, stay tuned. Tomorrow we're gonna be back. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're gonna have a special guest, to talk about the legal aspect of this deal and the lawsuit that you heard against Apple, and how that plays a critical role into the conversation that we have. I see, Brother Maurice, you busy, but we're gonna.
Yeah, it's time.
It's time to go. She's letting you know, hey, Daddy, that's it. All right. Well, thank you so much, y'all, for watching this. And I will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
I will see you tomorrow. Yeah. Happy Friday, y'all.
All right. Thanks, Gaitan. Talk to you. Peace.
Yeah. Peace.